It's time to fly home from India after an amazing trip, and that means I'm back on the Air India 787 in business class, Delhi to Copenhagen. Will it be as good as the flight coming over, or will that turn out to have been a fluke? Is Air India ready for prime time, or not quite yet? Oh, and will there be clear skies over the Hindu Kush mountains? This one I'm going to tell you already. There were, and it was just amazing flying over these, some of the tallest mountains in the world. But for the rest, you're going to have to watch on, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. We now join up with this homebound trip just kicking off after the check-in counters at Delhi. Alright, that was not so bad. The first and business class section has its own immigration and security, which had almost nobody in it. That was such a lifesaver. Still, I don't know what Delhi and its thing with making you take off your shoes is about. I have these kind of hiking boots. Every other airport, they didn't bother with that. It adds a next level of stress to have to untie and tie these shoes in the middle of everything else with all my electronics out. But still, very few crowds, so that was great. And I'm done with my Indian security checks for this week and this trip. Thank God. No more major variables to fear. But yeah, make sure if you're in business, don't miss that there's that separate lane far at the far end. If you're facing toward the airplanes, toward airside, it's all the way down on your right. Go use that. It makes a huge difference. Here I am in the lounge watching the insane graphics of Indian news channels and also repping Air Tindi. Did you catch that video over on the FR24 channel? I'll link to it below. In case you were curious about my gear, here's some of it. Getting a little charge before departure. Alright, this is quite a nice lounge, the Encom Privé Lounge. Not to be confused with the other Encom Lounge, which is, I believe, upstairs from here. You gotta follow the signs for quite a while, then take a lift up to the 3rd floor, and then you have this, which is, I guess, more for business class passengers on Air India and maybe others, instead of the other Encom, which is a chain you see all over India where a lot of people have memberships. I guess it's Priority Pass or something similar. I'm guessing you can get into that one with Priority Pass too, like most of these, but not this. So yeah, nice place, kind of loud but nice music, lots of space, not very full. I guess this is a quiet time, so maybe it's a nice time to wait for a flight in Delhi too. Might try a little bit of food soon. For now, just doing a little coffee and a water. In general, I'm really happy to have like 5-hour layovers in airports. That's a really good amount of time to settle into a lounge, get some work done, have something to eat, take it easy, not stress. I find that amount of time goes by super quickly. So, yalla, let's do this. Sit around for a while, maybe eat some lunch. This time I decided to try out row 1 to see how the bulkhead is. Same old school look and feel, but I'm into it. Same catchy boarding music, nice bottle of water, pajamas, slippers, blankets, amenity kit, everything you need really. And let's get going. Hopefully we find some better weather up there. Here's a look at that very unique amenity kit pouch, which you'll have seen on the last 787 flight. And there's headphones and slippers too. They really offer everything. I really love these slippers. If you know me, you know I love slippers on an airplane, and these are especially nice against this red carpet. Decent champagne and nuts to start things off. And we're really lucky today, like I mentioned earlier, because our route takes us up north over the border regions of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and the weather cleared up just in time. I mean, look at this. These are the Hindu Kush mountains, technically separate from the Himalayas further east, but sharing a geologic history with all the mountain ranges around here, the result of the Indian subcontinent colliding with the Eurasian plate many millions of years ago. This area is home to some of the tallest mountains in the world, and flying over them at 40,000 feet, you can really tell. It feels almost like you could touch them. Eventually, though, it's time to turn back to the lunch service, and I have to say this is where things began to fall down a bit on this flight, versus every other Air India flight I'd taken this past week anyway. This appetizer was a little bit shocking, both in presentation and flavor. I'm happy to report the main dish was tasty though, with a nice jar of mixed pickle. Now I do apologize, I usually save these menus, but I moved house since recording this, and now I can't find them, so I can't tell you exactly what these dishes were. Anyway, moving on, it's all pretty comfortable for lounging around on this daytime flight, and the roughly 7-hour trip goes by pretty quickly. Pre-arrival meal was again just not very good. And apart from that, I did notice the service on this one was not nearly at the level of my prior flights on Air India this past week. It's not that the crew were bad at their jobs or even unfriendly, they just weren't at that same level that the crew on my inbound flight was especially. A certain level of polish and training combined with enthusiasm for their jobs was very evident on all my previous flights and was not really present here. Look, for this fare of around $850 round trip, I think this was an absolutely cracking value. I'd take this again 100 times, but this flight did show me that, as many of you have suggested in the comments, Air India is not quite there yet with its transformation and lacks some consistency. Still, I came away with such a good impression overall of where Air India is headed, and I have really high hopes for it as the airline continues to push forward with its ambitions. Clear after this flight that Air India has some way to go still in its turnaround and its push for improvement. I think this was probably the least great of my Air India flights, but overall it was a really good average. And the crew were not unfriendly, just maybe a little bit less at the level of the other ones, that kind of Gulf carrier level. And I think it's relevant to compare with the Gulf carriers because they take a lot of people to and from India, from other parts of the world. And Air India is looking to take back some of that traffic, right? So if you look at how it is to fly the Gulf carriers in a premium cabin, that level of service, I experienced that to a great degree on my other Air India flights, but not so much on this one. But the most important thing that they need to get to, that can't come too soon, is refurbishing these cabins, because everything looks really manky, it's falling apart, and that's going to be your lasting impression for passengers. they're going to keep having this thing in their mind. You're in a battle now to convince passengers that you have upped your game, but you still have these really rough around the edges, not only old seats, but everything is falling apart in the interior of the cabin. You know, there's panels in the bathroom that are held up by rudimentary tape. Things are popping open. It's just messy. So that's going to happen pretty soon. Apparently, early next year, they're going to start retrofitting, refurbishing these Dreamliners, and that really needs to happen ASAP. I think it'll go a long way in helping to kind of turn around this image that people have, which is not such a great one, of Air India, and see that they are changing, which I believe they are. I believe it's headed in the right direction. But this will be a key thing to do, because these Dreamliners do a lot of flights and they look a lot older than they really are. So let's hope we see that really soon. I'm looking forward to flying on the first refurbished one. Thanks for coming along.